morning. It is Saturday, September 5th, 2020. You can now relax and be informed. Here is your daily bite of news. Back in February 2020, the Pentagon released a memo calling for the longtime military publication Stars and Stripes to cease publication in September. After a backlash of criticism, the Pentagon has revised its decision. Considered a vital source of journalism for veterans, the $15.5 million budget towards the publication was already approved by the House. It was deemed too minuscule to really be worth taking out of the 2021 budget after all. On August 29th, at a protest in Portland, Oregon, Michael Reinoehl shot and killed Aaron Danielson. In a taped interview, Michael claims he acted in self-defense and says he isn't a part of any Antifa group. He went armed to the protest to provide security against right-wing groups, who are also doing the same against Antifa groups. This September, Michael was killed by US Marshals in Washington state as they tried to arrest him for second-degree murder. Initial reports and a witness indicate he threatened officers with a gun and attempted to flee his apartment by car and on foot. Officers did try to resuscitate Michael after he was shot. Aaron Danielson, his victim, was a supporter of a right-wing group called Patriot Player. Facebook recently removed pages from their 45,000 member account that had writings and depictions for violence and the potential for inciting mass shootings. Michael's sister said this about her brother's death. He believed the war was here, and look where that got him. I believe the peaceful majority are stronger than that. We can still choose peace. It is hard to look hatred in the eye and choose not to reflect it back, but under all the bitterness, we are all people. The Pentagon awarded JEDI a $10 billion military cloud computing contract to Microsoft in lieu of Amazon. Amazon originally challenged the decision, claiming the deal was influenced by President Trump's dislike of Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos. The Pentagon evaluated the claims and determined that Microsoft's bid was of the best value to the government. Kyle Rittenhouse, 17 years old, was charged with homicide after he had shot 3 people at a protest in Kenosha, Illinois, last week. He had driven to Kenosha to self-police, wielding an assault gun illegally for his age. He is being charged as an adult with 2 counts of murder. His attorney claims he shot in self-defense. A video shows he was pursued before he fired on the 3 men. Japan's longest-serving prime minister in their history, Shinzo Abe, announced his retirement for health reasons. He assumed leadership in 2012, and while in office brought forth moderate economic success, encouraged foreign relations with Indo-Pacific, Australia, and the USA. He wanted the 2020 Olympics to be hosted in Japan, but was thwarted by COVID. 1 month after the Beirut, Lebanon blast on August 4th, since then Lebanon's economic crisis has magnified. Unemployment has risen to 30%, 70,000 people made jobless by the blast. Currently, their money has inflated over 100%, making it hard for many to buy food, much less building supplies or COVID tests. Mass protests by citizens and movement groups over the economic crisis led the Prime Minister and his entire cabinet to resign. The people are calling for a new government of independent thought, different from the old oligarchy, for their upcoming elections. If politics are not stabilized, many fear Hezbollah will dominate and ISIS may return to the area. Activist groups will have to come together if they want change. Foreign help will be required to stabilize the economy. France has indicated they are willing to help with reform talks. September 4th, President Trump met with Serbia President Aleksandar Vučić and Kosovo Prime Minister Abdullah Hoti at the White House to oversee an agreement to normalize economic relations. A decade earlier, Kosovo, a Muslim state, declared independence from Serbia. The agreement also added that Kosovo would establish diplomatic relations with Israel and open an embassy in Jerusalem by July 2021. President Trump said this: "It has taken tremendous bravery by both leaders to embark on these tasks. By doing so, they have made their country safer. Several groups of drug companies competing to develop the first COVID vaccine are planning to pledge that they will not release any vaccines that do not follow rigorous efficacy and safety standards, despite pressures to release one by October. Most companies are hoping for results by January. Russian scientists report they have a vaccine, Sputnik 5, that produced a modest level of antibodies with only mild side effects. Independent reviews say it looks promising, but need more data and follow-up. President Trump said in a White House news conference that new COVID-19 cases have declined by 28% nationwide, an 85% reduction death rate since April overall. In a University of Washington Institute, IHME, they forecast that by January 2021, the death toll from COVID could be 410,000 in the USA. Other scientists who looked at this claim that this might be unrealistic, that it doesn't take into account the weakening virus, or that doctors have gotten better at taking care of infected patients, and that the mortality rate from the infections have fallen. Dr. Scott Atlas, President Trump's new COVID advisor, is pushing for controversial ideas like herd immunity and pushing to reopen the economy faster and to open schools back up. Dr. Atlas is an expert in his field of MRI medical imaging technology, but some do not think he should be taken as an expert on COVID. Contact tracing data from 14 states and New York show that 3/4 of COVID patients are reluctant to cooperate with contact tracing programs, such as refusing to say the names of those they have come in contact with. People fear conspiracy and scams and are suspicious. The programs are also finding it difficult to find health officials to follow up with patients as well. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell says unemployment data for August was positive, but economic recovery is a long road ahead. Over the next few years, interest rates will remain low. The unemployment rate fell to 8.4%, as opposed to the peak of 10% when COVID first hit. New York State Restaurant Association published results from a survey showing 63.6% of restaurants in New York are likely to close by end of year without some sort of relief help. Mike Pence assures that the White House still wants to send out a second wave of stimulus checks. Democrats and Republicans agree, but still are debating over added funding details for states and schools. Congress must first approve the new government spending. CEOs of Gulf region oil do not expect growth to resume until 2021. IMF predicted in June that countries will see their economies shrink by 7.6% this year due to pandemic and oil industry crash. September 4th, 2020, released a presidential memorandum on Space Policy Directive 5, Cybersecurity Principles for Space Systems under the National Security of Defense. Under this memorandum, the USA considers unfettered freedom to operate in space vital to advancing the security, economic prosperity, and scientific knowledge of the nation. This memorandum redefines space systems to include ground systems, vehicles, and sensor networks that provide a space-based service. Also, cybersecurity principles that apply to terrestrial systems also apply to space systems. Physical protections to be in place to protect space systems from unauthorized access to vulnerabilities from outside sources. And they also dictate a management of supply chains to such systems. In other news, on September 1st, 2020, President Trump issued an executive order to temporarily halt evictions through the end of 2020 in an effort to slow the spread of COVID. The CDC used its authority to back the order. Certain American renters who meet the conditions if they have exhausted their best efforts to pay rent and are likely to be homeless due to eviction. Under this order, landlords are still permitted to pursue eviction against tenants for listed offenses. The Department of Housing and Urban Development announced they would extend their eviction and foreclosure moratorium for FHA-insured homeowners to the end of 2020. There you have it. To read more in depth on any of these topics, see the video description below for links to our sources. Subscribe to this channel and click the bell icon to receive a daily video update. Thank you for listening.